Welcome to Enter the Paraverse. I'm psychic medium Kimmy Angelique, and I have my friend Armand. Yay! Welcome Armand to the show. He is a longtime friend and a medium. And today we're going to talk about ghost on screen, what Hollywood got right and what they didn't get right. And he is the perfect person to answer this question, because not only is he a medium, he's great with pop culture, but he has a different take on the medium. So what do I mean by that? Let me give you a little bit of a background with him. So if you don't mind, Armand. So Armand is a very special type of medium, and correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe that you tend to see spirits, maybe not all the time, but at some times with your physical eyes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I would say majority of mediums, especially professional mediums, do not see spirits that way. Can we? Absolutely. Have we? Probably. But on a normal basis, we tend to see them almost like a memory in our head, but it's very vivid. It's information that we wouldn't know. And so that's usually how we would see spirits and ghosts and anything paranormal. But Armand is very special because he actually sees with his physical eyes. This is very rare. And so I think that he can give us a different take on what Hollywood got right and what they didn't when it comes to any type of horror movies concerning ghosts or spirits or anything of that nature. I have clearly a different take. I've had experiences with my physical eyes, but majority of the time it's internal with my third eye. So I would be considered what you say a professional practicing medium, whereas he's had experiences since he was a child and has been dealing with that. So again, a totally different take, probably interacting more with the lower vibrational earthbound spirits, would you say?
Yeah, yes. The people that are here, they may not realize they're here, or they don't know why they're still here. They may not realize they passed on, or I also am not always a believer in the benevolent, friendly spirit. I'm a much bigger believer in the stuff that frankly scared the shit out of me when I was little. And I think that it's a little more intentional, whether it's feeding off of energy or it's a way. I would even go so far as to say at times a way to pass time because they may be bored. And I'll tie that into some of the films that we're going to talk about too. But for me, it's my take is just different. Like you're saying, I'm not always as trusting. Like, and I know you and I have talked about this for years. Like I don't always, my mom and grandmother are both mediums as well, and like my mom was always good for the old Spanish, Italian, Portuguese thing of, oh yeah, your dead relatives are there to give you like the winning lotto numbers. They're there to give you like good luck and look out for you. And I
still waiting for those lotto numbers.
Yeah, I haven't gotten them yet. Like that would have been good for like the billion last week or whatever it was.
Just a portion, just a little bit of it.
Like not even somehow
they can a little something.
I mean, somehow they could affect the pull on a slot machine in Mohegan. But it's
great mug, by the way.
Oh yeah,
creepy as all hell.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
So that's why I couldn't wait to have this episode with you, because you have a completely different take. Now, I too have a different take, not so much different from yours, but I would say probably from the normal psychic mediums that I kind of hang out in my circles. So many people have this love and light experience, which is completely great. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but unfortunately, my start was more on the darker side as well. It wasn't until I was in my 30s that I realized that I could actually attract the lighter side, and I realized how to do that. And that's when I started having interaction majority with higher vibrational beings, those who have crossed over, angels, ascended masters, that type of thing. But up until that point, it was all pretty negative. So
Yep.
I totally understand your take. But yeah, so I think being that you see things differently, you would give a really good perspective as to whether or not Hollywood got some of these things right. So let's kind of jump into it. So we have our list here. So now you have seen The Ghost Whisperer, the show?
Yeah, I that's one of the ones that when I still lived with my parents, my mom was always good to have it on.
Oh, really?
That and Charmed.
Oh, I forgot about Charmed.
And
That's interesting.
and she, you know, and I think about the Family Guy episode where they had, I don't know why the ghost talked to me, and she's wearing like a low cut shirt. Jennifer Love Hewitt. But it's like
True.
That one.
We love her, by the way.
Yeah, I did too. I
I'm sure you did.
I know what you did.
Shit, I did too. No, stop.
But I like that show. It's like, it was what, CW or UPN, whatever. It was, so it had a
I don't
cadence.
know. I probably want to say I don't remember, because I caught the wave when it was on syndication, but but I want to say like probably like channel 2 or 4, you know, CBS or NBC or something to that. If I could be completely wrong, but something like that.
It's sanitized, and it's like it's another one of those positive shows, which is good, and like it dealt with like personal issues and stuff. What I liked about it was that sometimes they showed like those periods of doubt in people, and that's what I think a lot of times in, and I don't want to generalize, but with a lot of these shows, it's like, I'm already jumping around, like with The Conjuring, which is my favorite of all of these. Like they make them seem like superheroes, and they don't, like, they never really make mistakes. And I think that, and I'm thinking about The Ring, like the part where the kid's like, Rachel, you helped her, you weren't supposed to help her. Aside from the fact that, like, how would that kid know that randomly and figure it out, you know? But that also sort of harkens to the idea that like kids are more in tune, and they may realize more than we do. But with Ghost Whisperer specifically, it's like you have somebody that's like tormented by it to an extent. Like they're not really welcome, and that's, I think, what resonated with me is I this gift I have, and my mom still yells at me about it. I don't embrace it because it scares the shit out of me sometimes. Like when you're sleeping and you have people that you don't, I'm going to say either don't know or don't recognize coming in and out of your space, and mine physical manifestations of people coming in and out of my space, it's a little jarring. And my first inkling is like, I equate it to when you're sitting in your house, and if you have somebody that just shows up like a physical manifestation of a person that's like busting into your house or sneaking in your house, it's not that different for me. Like it's I like my space, I like my cone. And it's it's either a physical thing where they're actually bumping you or touching you, because like I've been bumped and I've been touched and I've been, you know, shoved and whatever. But then there's also the emotional piece of it, because you're drawing energy and having energy drawn from you, and you're taking on people's emotions and these beings' emotions. And with Ghost Whisperer, the thing that I like about it is it shows that piece of it, because there's turmoil in her life, but there's also the additional turmoil of this gift that she's got. Where she's being bombarded almost constantly by these presences and by these beings. And I relate to that, because as you alluded to at the beginning, and I said before, like I'll say I didn't see it as a gift. I saw it as almost a burden. Like,
oh yeah, it's freaking scary until you know what the hell it is. I mean, it's all scary, really.
And
until
you're also sort of put upon, like, or at least I am. I don't know about you, but like, I didn't ask for this. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't. And and even besides like paranormal stuff, it's like anybody that's bestowed with great power, like what's the Spider-Man line? With great power, there comes great
Comes
responsibility.
great responsibility.
That's great until you're like, but I didn't want, again, I didn't ask for that. And it's like, so you have people and beings and whatnot that are coming to you for help, or the old Casper unfinished business, which actually that's a movie we should be talking about because it actually, I think they did a pretty good job. But the idea of it being this big gift for me, that's something I've always struggled with, because it's I didn't think a gift would be that scary. And a lot of it for me was always, it's scary. Like I dead relatives that I didn't know, that I never met, that I found out about like years after these things had started. And even with their manifestations, it's not even like they weren't like deformed, or they didn't look the way that they did when they passed, or they didn't look like you've been through some kind of an accident, or like when you read like the biblically accurate description of angels that are sound like, you know, nightmare fuel and like terrifying.
Yep.
It's not even like that. It's just like, I told the last time
people don't know that too. People don't know that the actual form of the angel is too frightening for them to even show themselves in their natural state, which is why they've adopted this fictitious humanoid looking thing with wings. They clearly are not like that, but like you would shit yourself if you saw exactly what they really look like. Well, and so they obviously don't want to come and scare you, so they take on what humans find to be loving and whatnot. I see them as light beings, their natural form. They don't come to me with wings. I see them in their natural light form. That's how I when I've encountered what I would call angels, that's the same thing. Like they look almost like orbs, but just brighter in color and stuff. Color brighter. Sometimes they're very small if they're not trying to startle you. Sometimes, like especially since the veil has been very thin, you know, the end of October, beginning of November, they've become much larger and have scared the shit out of me. Like I saw something sit near me and I look over and there's nothing, and I'm like, dude, I know something sat near me because I saw it right at the corner of my eye, sat right on the ottoman with me, and I was like, what the okay, but it scared the shit out of me, and I did not make it up. But they're like, oh, sorry.
It's like it's true, but it's true, and that's another example of it. Like they're, I don't know, I guess it's a paradox. It's like I'm in my house right now, and I'm, you know, there was something that existed here before my house, before our town. Like we live in the same town before Shelton existed. There, you know, before Connecticut was a thing. You know.
Post-production, you make sure you take out where we live.
Oh,
we don't need stalkers. I'm just kidding.
No, sorry.
Just bleep out his
name. Please don't stalk us.
We have enough unwanted people.
I don't want live ones. But the you know, the crazy thing is when you think about like what came before and what's here now. I guess we could talk about Poltergeist with this. I mean, that's something in that, and I watched that movie over the Halloween season after not watching it for a long, long time. And then when I was a kid, there was two movies I was obsessed with. There was Poltergeist and The Exorcist. And
how do we not have that on our list?
We'll talk about that on the next
all right,
time.
but we still have to finish Ghost Whisperer. But
sorry.
Remind that.
See, I'm jumping around. But I mean, the way it resonates with me is again, like I said before, is the idea of having an almost constant barrage of help being asked of you, and then having to accept it and be able to go through and see it as not a burden or not a negative thing, but rather you're doing some kind of a service, or you're doing some kind of a humanistic, altruistic thing. But there have been instances on, you know, shows like that where, you know, I think that it would have been nice if you had seen an instance where they were tricked, or where they were wrong, or they made a mistake, and that I think that is something that's a little more accurate.
Mhm.
And we'll get into that later in the list.
So
That's really
yeah,
how I feel about it.
with Ghost Whisperer, there's I would say a lot of stuff was done correctly. My boy James Van Prague, a mentor of mine who actually my early training, I studied with him, was a producer writer on the show. So a lot of the detailed information, the terminology, all of that stuff is very accurate. And I love that, because if you're a newbie or you want to learn, the terminology, that's the show to watch, because there's a lot of things in there that the muggle, if you will, and I know B is behind the scenes probably laughing at that, wouldn't understand. But it brings terminology to the things that we experience. And so I love that. I love the fact that you have these big scary entities or whatever, but usually they're misunderstood, and you find out why. The reason why I like that is because, in fact, a lot of earthbound spirits are misunderstood. And I'm not saying that they're not angry, they're not giving off this bad energy, which is usually why we get scared, is because we're picking up on the spirit's energy. But because it's like, let's say for 100 years, you're trying to get somebody's attention and no one is responding to you. You become more frustrated and angry to the point where your energy has become so low. It's just really negative, and you can feel that in the space. But once there's somebody that can actually see or hear them, it's like this whole crazy thing. And if you have somebody that, takes the time, and it's really trendy to give readings to celebrities and all that, but it's not so trendy to do shadow work, to work on the darker side, which I'm kind of drawn to, where you actually say, hey, let's help the spirit. They have something to say. Sometimes when you go into haunted locations, their story has been told wrong for so many years that they become very frustrated, and they're just waiting for someone to listen to them, which is where you get the hauntings and all that. So I love that the Ghost Whisperer showed us the negative side, if you will, but showed us that a lot of the times it's us making it bigger than it is, or we're perceiving their anger, their anguish, their pain as being negative, because it is a negative emotion, but negative does not equal evil. And that's what I loved about the show. But it also did touch upon things that were very, very lower level as well as the higher vibrational. So I liked that. One of the things that I thought was really okay, it was Hollywood, was the whole her husband passing away. I think we were all very upset about that. And then his soul jumping into the EMT that helped him. And then all of a sudden, she sees him, that's her husband. And yeah, some people can say possession, but it doesn't work that way. That was all Hollywood. That was all Hollywood. Your soul either, if it wants to stay earthbound, it stays earthbound, or it crosses over. There's no, hey, I'm going to choose somebody else's body. And, no, it doesn't work that way. So that was like, all right, you went too far for me. But I like the realness of how sometimes her gift, her curse, her service, whatever you want to call it, would interfere with the relationship she had with humans. And sometimes it wasn't in a positive way, because that's legit. Let me tell you, you will lose friends. You'll have people that you love look at you like you're crazy. There's a whole bunch of stuff that comes along with this. So that to me was very accurate. That there are times where you're being bombarded in the middle of the night, and you're scaring people because you're scared, and it's interfering with life. And then even the fact that her son had abilities as well, which just shows that she got it from her grandmother, she passed it down to her son. That's something that and obviously you resonate as well with. So I thought it was pretty good. Obviously it needed to be entertaining, and low cut shirts and all that stuff. I'm just playing. I actually really enjoyed it. I would come home from our mutual job. We will not say names. And I would say, oh, there's a marathon, I'm gonna watch it. So I would watch it like after work. And especially because at the time I was actually working with James in Prague. So it was kind of perfect for me. There's some stuff in there that was a little weird, but you know, you got to put little stuff in there for the muggles and whatnot.
Yeah, I remember, I couldn't remember from Sam or Edwards that was the key on that show. And I just remember seeing them on Unsolved Mysteries and stuff, like whenever they would have the, you know, back in the, you know, the old one, not the Netflix one that's
Trust me, no, yep.
And you know, going to talk to spirits and stuff, and it was cool that they were able to do that, and they took it seriously. But
James
I mean, to your point,
actually got his start on Unsolved Mysteries. Like one of his starts, he was featured on there, which was always like, why do I know this guy? Because I used to watch, who didn't watch Unsolved Mysteries? That was like the closest we had to any paranormal show back in the day. So
that's still like there's some of that stuff is still like the scariest stuff I've ever seen.
Hell yeah.
Like I remember the Myrtle's Plantation.
We still watch it in our house.
Yeah,
the old episodes.
Yeah, on my TV, there's like the channels, like the Wi-Fi channels. One of them is all Unsolved Mysteries all day, every day, and it's
get out of here. That's crazy.
There's a Bob Ross channel and there's an Unsolved Mysteries channel, and I watch those two.
Gotta have a Bob Ross. Side note, gotta have a Bob Ross. This dude right here is a tremendous artist. So shout out to Bob Ross. Spirit. Another thing I like, and we'll move on, is in Ghost Whisperer, Jamie Kennedy's character became a medium, an accident or something, you know, forgive me, but his way of perceiving or receiving, I should say, messages from spirit was completely different than Melinda's character, Jennifer Love Hewitt. She saw, heard, felt all of that stuff. You know, all of a sudden she was somewhere else. I mean, a little dramatic, but he heard messages. Yeah. And I like that they did that, because not every medium is different. I know you see things, I see things, but I also hear, feel, and know things. But there are mediums that I personally know that do not see, they hear. So that's interesting. And I love that they did put that take in there, because it just shows that everybody is different. Mediums have a different way of communicating with spirit.
My grandmother used to hear. It can
be something you're born with, or maybe you had a near-death experience or a traumatic something. Like it can open up at any time. And so I did like that they did that.
Yeah, my grandmother and my mom hear, and I remember growing up, and like my mom would have these like vivid nightmares, I guess the best way to put them. Like she would you know, have premonitions about things that were coming, stuff that had happened in the past, and they were just like vivid, and like she was inconsolable. Like I just remember my dad really struggling with it, and I remember it would happen. It still happens now. I mean, 30 something years later, but the screaming and like the how vivid it was, and then she'd be back, and then she'd be not back. It was just crazy. And it would be like stuff about my grandmother after she passed away, and stuff about her dad, who I used to see and I never met. Stuff about my aunt. But it to just hear and feel that, and it being that real without actually seeing, because like I'm very visual. Like I'm just always been a visual person, and that the idea of that scares me.
So let me ask you, because you said that she heard things, but you're saying she had premonitions during her dreams. So I'm taking that she saw things during the dream state.
Sometimes she would see, but it was usually like not really voices, but almost like glimpses, almost like but
because that's very
intense,
that's
sensory,
very normal,
like intense sensory things that would go on, or like she would feel like huge rush of like water, like a big wave washing over her.
Mm,
And then my grandmother would have conversations. Like it was always like just talking, and it would be
mm.
sometimes in English, sometimes in Spanish. Like it was just very, very odd. And she did the egg thing from the Paranormal Activity. Like that's the movie that I can't watch, is that Paranormal Activity, the marked ones.
Look.
We should talk about that one.
Paranormal Activity, like I watched them, but it for me personally, it was very, it hit close to home. So it's just
Yeah.
like, it was like, lights on for a few days. But to go back to like the premonitions and everything with dreaming, for those who are sensitives, those who maybe don't want to talk to spirits in the waking hours or anything like that, that's the easiest and quickest way for spirits to come through, is when we're in that like in between phase, like just before going to sleep or just before getting up is when you'll
Yep.
get messages, because it's so easy for spirit to come in, and it's not always bad, but it's easier for them to come through. I get so many premonitions, like the difference between a dream and a premonition or a message, because like you said, I will wake up and I still feel like I'm in, even though I'm there's a feeling that you get in your stomach, there's a weirdness in your head, like you feel like you're sleepwalking but you're awake, and it's the difference, hands down. It's so weird, but if you can figure out the difference and protect yourself if you don't want anything unwanted, it can be helpful, but it is very weird. It takes some getting used to. And usually right before I fall asleep, that's when I see like a whole bunch of like faces and stuff like that, and I'm like, all right, calm down. You're doing too much right now. I want to go to sleep, leave me alone. I set my boundaries. If I don't want to communicate with them, I say, please don't let me sleep. If I do want a message, I say, come to me in my dreams. You've come to me at night right before I fall asleep. I've seen shadow figures. I'm not feeling that just yet. So wait until I fall asleep. So you have to set boundaries. And usually if you're very strong in your boundaries, they will listen. But there's always good and bad everywhere, I think. And it depends on where your vibrational level is. That depends what you allow.
Mhm.
And neither is good or bad. It's just where you are. All right, so that's Ghost Whisperer. That was number one on our list because it just touched a lot of things. So let's get to your movie, The Conjuring.
I love that movie. I went to go see the Warrens talk in like the 90s.
Oh, I was gonna set you up. I was about to set you up. I was gonna say,
Sorry.
this is why he's the perfect person to talk about this particular movie, is because he's actually met Lorraine Warren. Oh my God, I wish I had the opportunity. But you've actually done some paranormal tours with her, and has actually been able to speak to her. So like, this is definitely something that you can speak to. I've met their son-in-law, who talked about this movie and how, I believe, this, out of any of the movies that they had, was the most accurate. I believe it was either this one or the third one. A lot of the others were very Hollywood, but this one.
First,
take it away.
This first, like I went to see them in 1998. I remember it was like the week before Halloween. It was not in a big space. It was in like the community room at the library. And it was before the whole like resurgence. Like there was no movie yet. It was just watching people that I had seen on, not Unsolved Mysteries, but like another paranormal show back in the 90s. I forgot what it was called. And I think they were on Unsolved Mysteries. Yeah, because they did the story. They did a story about an exorcism in Connecticut. I think it was either Connecticut or Rhode Island. Anyway, but I got to. That was one of the reenactments that scared me. But being able to see them talk, and I had a copy of The Demonologist, and they signed it for me, and I still have it. It's here in the house, and it just, having somebody that did that was from where I'm from, and having the opportunity to meet them like in my hometown, like it was just it was cool to experience that. And so, you know, flash forward to when the movie came out, I'd heard about it being made, and I liked James Wan, who directed the first two, and I liked Insidious, which we'll talk about as well. Like I think Insidious is a great, like it takes everything that you do in a horror movie and it does the opposite, and it makes it that much scarier, because like you feel like you're lulled into the sense of like nothing happens during the day and then everything happens during the day. And growing up, a lot of things happen to me during the day, so it's like that's another like false sense of security. Like you think that like the lights are on, you're all right, you think pulling the cover over your head that you're going to be okay, and it's nonsense.
I like
things
that.
happen whatever happen.
Thank you for saying that, because everything in paranormal, even like the paranormal investigation shows, everything is done at night, which is great. You know, it's entertainment and everything, but they make it seem like shit starts popping at night. Like if your shit is haunted, it is haunted day,
24/7.
night, 24/7. So it's like, so this is why like some of the shows, I would love for them to have like a mega show of the camera people, all of the producers that are on set. Do they experience anything? Because when they're going there and they're with like, I don't want to drop names or anything like that, but like they have like an interviewer, or they're doing like their interview before they go and do the lockdown or whatever. They're talking to these people. Come on, you're telling me that nothing happened?
Yeah.
Nothing, everything happened that night. Anyway,
that's why I love these. But like, again, I'm going to jump around a little bit, but like growing up, there was a show on the Discovery Channel I used to watch. It was called Movie Magic, and it was a behind the scenes show about like all the big, like they had one about Star Wars and Jaws and Indiana Jones and yada yada yada. And I remember they did one, and it was an hour long special, and half of it was Poltergeist and half of it was The Exorcist. And I was obsessed with those two movies when I was growing up.
Linda Blair, another Connecticut person.
My
father went to school with her.
So they had the making of for both of these, and what drew me was the whole idea of like the haunted or cursed movie. Like Poltergeist has a whole bunch of stuff that happened. Exorcist had a whole bunch of stuff that happened. Like people that were in the movie died. Like
the little girl.
For real. Yeah, the little girl, the older sister in Poltergeist, the guy that played the shaman in the second one, he died. And then in The Exorcist, they had like fires on set, and they had camera stopped working, and they had production shut down, and the mother got hurt for real in a scene, like unexpectedly, and the guy that played the director, the like drunk guy that gets pushed down the stairs and his head's turned around, like he really died while they were making the movie. Like it's just crazy. And so the idea and the story of like a cursed movie was fascinating to me. So being able to watch the making of this stuff comes through, and that's why that's why I think part of The Conjuring was so appealing to me, because like they were involved with like the Amityville Horror for real.
Yep.
And that is another one of those movies where like weird stuff happened while they were doing the production of the film. But the thing about The Conjuring specifically, besides the connection to the Warrens and having met them when I was young and being able to experience them before it was like the cool too,
trendy.
Like before it was like a trendy thing, is stuff happens at all times. Like some of the movie magic stuff is like the big finale stuff is at night. But stuff happens during the day. Like they're like every day is not just fine, and then once it turns like 8 o'clock and the sun's down,
right, as soon as the sun goes down,
like the ghost like the ghost bell goes off and they're like, all right, you can come out and scare these people. Like it was not like that. And it took those tropes and it changed them. But the other thing that I like that they did too is they were they were honest about it. Like you saw the toll that it took on Lorraine. You saw that it was, there were cases that Ed didn't want to talk about. There was stuff that was making him say, maybe at least in the context of the movie, maybe this isn't worth it anymore. Maybe we stop. You know, this affects her, and it affects our
Even
marriage, and it affects our kids.
the kids, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Like, I thought that was real, because it's like, you can be on location helping somebody. If you think that shit doesn't come home with you, even if you're not physically home, because there is no time, you know what I mean? Like, spirits can go wherever they want.
Yeah.
And so, like, I thought that was, I like that. That was true, because you can have shit follow you home. So all these people who think it's fun to do, you know, paranormal investigations, like, be careful. Especially if you don't know what the hell you're doing, you can totally bring something home. Whether it's evil or whatever, it doesn't matter if it's affecting your life, you know?
Well, that's the thing too. It's like they had, you know, they had a group of people, and they didn't have this huge crew. Like, again, not to jump around, but like with Poltergeist, that's one of the things I loved about that movie is they started out with a group of, like, you know, professors at a college or students, whatever, graduate students or whatever, with their mentor. And it's, you know, some of them are doing it for the love of it. Some of them are doing it because it's, you know, he wants to be in video production or like camera work, and it's obvious that that's what he's doing. And then there's another guy, I forgot, he was not really into, the guy whose face he rips off when in the bathroom after he eats the nasty maggoty meat.
Sorry.
After it crawls across the counter. But like, he
just got me.
He leaves because he gets too scared, and like, you know, and the other two stay, and then they get Zelda Rubinstein to come, and you know, the house is clear, but it's not. But that was real to me. Like, it showed
That's
you
real life.
They think they know what they're doing. They think that they're into, like, because they studied it or whatever, and however they studied it, and they try to do things, and all they do is piss the beast off, and it takes a bite out of the camera guy or the other guy. And I remember that so vividly, like the parts where they're on the bottom of the stairs and the spirits are walking up, and you can only see it on the camera, which is another take that I liked, because, you know, they were able to take the science part of it, and make it understandable. The dog, that's the first movie that I really remember where, like, the dog is legitimately sensing stuff.
Senses something. Yep.
He's sitting against the wall, and the mom's like, "What's wrong with the dog?" And he's like, "Oh, he sees Caroline," whatever. But like those little moments in those movies, that's the thing that I like about it. And The Conjuring sort of dialed that up to 11, in the sense that they took a family. Like, there's a scene in The Conjuring where the guy goes, "Well, why don't we just move? Like, we have all our money tied up in this place. We'll just get out of here." And they're like, it doesn't matter where you go. It's gonna follow you. And Poltergeist is the first movie that I remember them showing that literally happening, because they move out of the house, and then they have to go back, and they think it's clear, and it happens again. Like, the thing comes back
to a person, and that's the thing. Yeah, it can be a haunting of a location, but it could very well be a haunting of a person. So wherever you go, it's gonna follow.
They're drawn to her energy, just like in The Conjuring, they're drawn to Lorraine's curiosity and her openness, and, you know. But again, back to my, you know, 5 points ago, where we were talking about the superhero thing. Like, that's one thing in that movie, The Conjuring, that they do. They sort of make it like Lorraine is, there's almost like superhero moments with it, and I understand, because she's, you know, she's sort of the pinnacle of all of that. I mean, they're the Amityville Horror people. They're you know, they're involved with every major haunting, you know, really you could name. But they do things that make them look superhuman, and that's the part where it sort of loses me a little bit. And it's not just with The Conjuring, it's with any of them. Because I think it's a little too much, sort of like you were describing with Ghost Whisperer, with like the over romanticized stuff. Like, I like when they make mistakes, and I like when they're flawed, and I like when they don't succeed. And The Conjuring, it's like I think they walked a fine line with that. I don't think they went too far, at least on the first one. And the second one, it was like, I don't know, that one. I'm not a huge fan of that one. That was weird. Like they go to England and like nobody believes this family, even though you have people that like they just broke the Amityville horror story, and that was an international story. It's not like that just happened in a microcosm, and you're not going to believe them. You're like, no, whatever. Yeah, I don't believe you that there's a weird old British guy in the house. What are you, ridiculous? But and then and it's
I like that too, because a lot of the movies in Hollywood, it's like you have this savior and they come in and they fix everything and you have a happy life. The one thing that you can always count on is that we don't know everything about the spiritual world.
Yeah.
And so we are doing things, rituals, protections, meditations, whatever, prayers, that have been passed down because so many people had to go through trial and error. But even still, that doesn't mean that it always works. And it may not just be the first time. For instance, I had an attachment. It's not something that I always talk about, but it wasn't like I went to go get a clearing and I was done. There was a multiple step. I had to get many healings and clearings. And then it ultimately came down to me saying, enough, you had to go. I had to first know that I had power. And so many people don't, because it's scary. And so they are actually giving up their power. And the more that they feed into the, they give this fear, it's feeding it. And a lot of people don't understand that because it's scary, and I get it. But yeah, it doesn't just happen like that. Like my attachment, I had to do a clearing. They kind of attached it a little bit. I had to do another one. And then even though it wasn't attached, it still stayed with me. And it was still fucking with me and giving me, like I had to sleep with the light on and stuff. And then it was like, okay, this last part, we can't help you anymore. You have to do this part. You have to put your foot down and call in reinforcements. It has to come from you. Otherwise, it will continuously come back. And that's not something that they always talk about in these movies. It's like, the hero comes in, saves the day, and the end of the movie. Or is it, Yeah.
And it's usually not. And like that
No,
just reminds me of my old apartment. Like I saged once and it made things worse. Like
and that is
like
true
mad.
too. That is true. That's very true. And I do remember that. And I'm not gonna lie, I felt bad because I was like, fuck, I was the one that gave you that advice.
Yeah.
But it wasn't wrong advice. But what it is that it's not a one and done type of situation. Like Lorraine came in, they got pissed off because they knew what was about to happen. So they uptick all the stuff. And that's gonna happen. Trust me, if there's a haunting or whatever, and you have people coming in, especially a medium, they know, okay, we know what this person is here for. And so they're going to get aggressive because this is their like final stand. So they're going to, things are going to get crazy, but you have to continuously work at it. Just know that it's not going to be, someone's going to come in or you're going to do sage or Palo Santo and it's going to be great. It may take a few times, but you have to hold your ground.
Well, that's the thing that's so frustrating with these movies. Like the thing that frustrates me about a lot of the movies, and not so much the ones we talked about at this point, but like it sets it up like it's a superhero movie. They're like, okay, there's this big evil thing or misunderstood or whatever that needs to be vanquished, and then they like the kid from The Ring. He's like, you helped her, Rachel? Why are you helping her? Like, how did he know that? And I, you don't always know everything. That's why I can't get into like the cryptid stuff, like the cryptid movies, like Bigfoot, and because just because you studied a bear doesn't mean you understand a Sasquatch. You know what I mean? Like it's or whatever. It's just like, and I'm not even talking like the realistic ones. I'm talking like Godzilla. Like how do you know? Like seriously, like it's a giant like alligator thing that just popped out of the ocean all of a sudden one day. How do you know what it's going to do? You don't. Like, stop.
You
You're making an entire country feel this false sense of hope. Relax. And sometimes these movies do that. And the one I think made fun of that the best was Beetlejuice, actually, because
yes, I do have that on our list.
we watched that, and it's like, and if you try to describe what Beetlejuice is about, it's almost impossible, because it's like, how did he come up with that? Yeah, how did Tim Burton come up with that? Like, seriously. But at the same time, it took, what was supposed, like in The Exorcist, like you're trying to get rid of an evil spirit, and it's like, basically, well, what if the spirit tried to get rid of us? But like, I don't know why he wanted to. I don't know how he knew how to do that. Like, I don't even know how long the guy's been dead. But it's like, they wake this guy up. He wants something. Like, he wanted to get married. Like, I don't know. Like, that's the only thing he ever said he actually wanted. Like, he wanted to get out of there. I don't know what that means in the model or whatever. And he had his reasons, and we never really find out. And that's what I think. I mean, aside from Beetlejuice just being a cool fucking movie, like, that's part of what I liked about it. Like, you're not supposed to like him. But what's the number one thing everybody remembers besides Alec Baldwin's weird bird head thing when they want to scare the Deetas, and the
worm thing.
The worms and the sandworms.
Sandworm.
But like, what does I don't know what his motivation is. I don't know what. He's just an asshole. And he happens to be a ghost.
Yeah. My only thing is, I'm guessing he wanted to come back in the living, and so he's going to do that by any means necessarily. But what is up with the blue chick? Like, why is she blue?
Oh, the Miss Argentina?
Yeah. Yeah. Why is she blue?
Stupid wrists. I love that movie. Coach, I don't think we survived the crash. Where's the men's?
Great movie. It's fun. It's all types of wrong.
It is.
There's
but at the same time, they do a seance in the end, and
which is legit. When stupid people do something that they shouldn't do,
yes,
that shit usually happens. So yes.
They almost
so
killed
for people
dead
who
people.
are doing so for people doing the Ouija board or seances without actual training and opening and closing, which are like the number 1 and 2 things that nobody who doesn't have training does. It's like, that shit will happen.
It's gonna happen because you don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Exactly. Like, I know from experience, so I can talk about this, because a fucking 16-year-old shouldn't be using the Ouija board, okay? That's where I got my attachment from, and it was with me for years because I was a child and didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I damn sure didn't know how to protect myself.
Or so, in this case, the parents, like in Beetlejuice, like the parents, they're just like, oh yeah, they're dead, whatever. Like, but they inherited a house that had stuff tied to it. It happened to be the people who used to live in that. And again, it's what I like about that movie is it shows, again, people making mistakes. They don't know what they're doing. They screw stuff up, and then they realize at the end, like, we're just gonna live with this. Like, we're gonna figure out a way to make it work. And that's probably my favorite part of it, besides, the fun part of it. Like, it's they accept, we've come into a reality where these people are gone, but they're not really gone. They're stuck. They don't ever figure out how to cross on. Or cross over. They actually make crossing over look terrible. Like, they're like turning into like dust and whatever.
And I like that you said that. I like that you said that, because no disrespect to anybody who practice love and light, and I mean no disrespect when I say that, but there are so many people out there who are like, there's no such thing as stuck. Now, that could maybe be a bad word, but the fact of the matter is, yeah, you actually can be. There are for whatever reasons, either they themselves are too scared to find out what's on the other side, because of their own beliefs. Maybe they think they were bad and they're going to go to hell. That's not the case. But if that's what they believe, then they're not going to want to cross over.
Then they're not going to want to do it.
Maybe they don't know they're dead. Maybe they have unfinished business. There's a whole shitload of reasons why a spirit may decide to stay behind. Now, do we really know? I don't know, but there's a popular belief that, souls can kind of like fragment, which I believe that as, as a practicing shamanic practitioner. So some, a part of it can stay behind, but maybe the larger soul will cross over and whatnot. But there is an actual aspect, which is where we get the hauntings from. And so it absolutely drives me insane when people are like, oh, I don't believe that spirit's going to say, you don't have to believe shit. Okay.
Well, there's what you believe, and
that's
there's
not
reality.
Thank
Like
you.
if it's happening, like that's what drives me nuts. Like you have people like I'm going to talk about other horror movies, like not anything that we're really discussing, like Nightmare on Elm Street. You have weird shit going on everywhere. And John Saxon's just like, you dumb kids, like what the hell are you talking about? Or like they see shit happening. You just saw a guy get torn apart alone in a cell with like 3 knife gouges through his chest. Something happened. Don't sit there and think these are weird kids on dope who are making it up. You're seeing it happen. Like the freaking killer clowns, the asshole sheriff, like that whole mocking.
I'm very glad that your Zoom is blurring out.
Blurred it
because I don't like clowns. Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, but like I apologize. But
look at my shirt.
I like that they use John Vernon's character and that to like mock that stupid idea. Like I hate that trope in horror movies, and I don't like it even more in like The Conjuring, or like in The Conjuring they have that Rhode Island state trooper that they have like patrolling the house, and he doesn't believe any of this is going on, even though you have these traumatized kids and a family that hasn't slept for days. Like it's happening. And I know that you have to believe what you see and touch, and you have to be procedural because you're in law enforcement. But give me a break. And like, did it really have to take like a scary face in a window?
I was gonna say with the laundry in the laundry room and all that stuff. Yeah, I guess so. He needed to get his ass whooped.
Like that's what did it.
It takes that much.
I guess. I mean, like whatever. Like but anyway, it's
that's what we deal with, though. That's what we deal with. Those of us who can see and feel. It's like we don't always know who we can trust and who we could talk to because not too many people believe us. Even in our own family, it's like, why the hell would I want to look and sound crazy?
Well, why
did you ever think about that?
Yeah,
like
well, why
who the hell? Like I want to be normal.
Yeah, like who would choose? I didn't. I will tell you right now, I did not choose this. I didn't, and that I guess we could talk about the Sixth Sense now. I guess, but like, I get why that kid is scared out of his mind. Because when I was a little boy, I have not watched that movie.
Ooh, that's a good
since
movie.
It came out. I saw it in theaters, and it hit me like
it hit home too much.
Yeah, because that kid is terrified constantly to the point where like his life's not normal, and my life was not normal. Like when I was 10 years old, I was taking Benadryl so I could fall asleep. And or like I would hear things and see things and not know if it was just normal noises or if it was something else, because sometimes when I would be awake, I would see stuff, I would hear stuff. And when you're 9-10 years old, sometimes you can let it roll. Like my son, I think when we were living away from here, he used to talk to nobody, and sometimes he still does. He doesn't seem bothered by it. I am. His mother is, but it's and but he doesn't seem afraid like I was. But I was afraid, and in fact, I was afraid of the person I was afraid of the most, who would happen to be my grandfather, that I never met, never saw. but scared the shit out of me for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
even if it was intentional, it doesn't matter, because it
It
still
still scared
scared
you.
a little boy. Like,
Absolutely.
and that closed
Yep.
me off for until I met
Mhm.
you, honestly, because I didn't want anything to do with this shit. And I was like, fuck that. I'm good. Like, let me just stay in my lane. And I felt like
Great.
a
Until he
combination
met
between
me.
and then
Until he met me.
well, no, because then
Great.
but
Does
then
your wife curse me out?
no, because well, she's funny. Like we talked about this actually like a couple of weeks ago. She's like, she doesn't get why I get scared. She and her we had a Halloween
It's
party
hard.
last year,
It's very
but
hard.
she's like, I want to see it. I want it to come and confront me, and I want to fight it. Like, she wants to, like, if she could beat the shit out of a ghost, she would do it, because she just, that's what she's about. And like, we something happened at our house, not this Halloween, but last Halloween, and her cousin was here, and they all believe, but it's like they're their cultures are very superstitious, and
Mhm.
the word is P for in their country for ghost, and like, but the ghosts are like mischievous. Like, when my father-in-law loses his pills, it's because the P took it and hid it.
Mhm.
Or like, when he can't find his keys, they took it to basically, ghosts are there to fuck with you.
Mhm.
And so because of that lesson, my wife wants to beat the shit out of a ghost, because she wants this, because she's like, why are you fucking with me? Like, I'm gonna fuck you up
Mhm.
now. And so there was a noise, and her cousin started running through the house, and he's like, show yourself. I want, and I'm like, what is the matter with you? And because he wanted to beat the shit out of a ghost. And me and my differently
Different
cultured
experience.
friends were like, don't do that. Just let it go. I have to sleep here tonight. You don't. Like, stop it.
Right? You ever notice
like,
that these people who are in
Yeah.
in the movies and in like paranormal shows, they like to come and taunt the spirits and shit, and then it's like, yeah, y'all motherfuckers get to go home.
I get to now.
We have to deal with this.
I get to deal with this. Thanks. Like, forever,
Yeah, right?
basically. But it's just my wife. She likes having nightmares because it's exciting. Like, she has like, she would go through sleep paralysis. I remember when we first got together, she had it at my apartment before we got married and moved in together. And she's laying there with her eyes wide open, not saying a word, like, death stare at me. And I'm like, this bitch is possessed. What the fuck am I gonna? And like, I didn't know what to do. And I had holy water in my room, and I was like, it's been 3 months. Are we at a point where I got to dump this on her? Like I, and she finally snapped out of it. Had no idea. And then we happened to talk about other paranormal stuff, but she comes to it from like trying to be like rational and like logical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It just it was just, I don't know. I equate it to like people that are into like religious Christmas versus like secular Santa Claus Christmas. Like, she's really into witch stuff, but like, she's into like secular witch, like hocus pocus, and like spells, but like not like healing, like earth stuff, but like, I'm gonna turn your pencil into a worm, and like or like zombie stuff, gory shit, like that Terrorizer 2 movie. She would love to see it, and I won't go because it's disgusting. But but when it comes to like certain ghost stuff, like, she won't watch The Conjuring with me. She'll watch like the Annabelle movies because the doll makes it silly. But like The Exorcist, The Conjuring, anything where she's out of control.
See, that Annabelle shit, I don't mean shit, but that Annabelle movie like is a little too close to home for me, because I had a Cricket doll that, you know, they talked and all that, and it was great. It was shits and giggles until it broke down and the thing started like talking and eyes were moving on its own. And as a kid who had experiences, that terrified me. You know, my father takes the head off and is like, oh, I'm gonna fix it and all that. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm just done. I don't want Teddy Ruxpin. I don't want cricket. I don't want my buddy. I don't want none of that. This is dating me.
She loves all that shit.
No, that's not fun. In fact, Chucky and all of that stuff, that creeps me out even more.
Yeah. See, anything for me, it's the religious stuff. Like it's anything religious, and and it's the lack of understanding, a lack of control. Because at the end of the day, like you could read the Bible 1,000 times, and that doesn't mean you understand it. That doesn't mean that you fully get it. But again, for me, it's the sense of control and the idea of the intrusion. Like it's like the idea of being possessed is probably the scariest thing for me personally.
Yeah.
Because you're completely out of control. You're completely, and the idea of attaching on an object scares me because you have no control over that. Like you don't, like my wife loves to thrift.
Not me.
She has asked
I don't even like going into those stores because I'm also an empath, so I feel the energy.
Yeah.
I know a lot of psychic mediums that will go and do that. They love that, and that's fine. And I'm not saying that I'm going to bring anything home, but I know what I've experienced, and I know just walking into somebody's house that I was thinking about possibly buying, all of the stuff that was in there made me sick to my stomach, literally sick to my stomach. And that is enough for me to never want to go. I want everything brand new.
But I mean, I hate to say it, but like new shit could be attached too.
Of course, but you have absolutely
Ouija boards are new.
Absolutely,
and that's my whole.
But that's also the intention as well. That there's the intention. You're intending to bring something through, but even like, okay, now, all right, we like to go on eBay every now and then. You see something that you couldn't find because it's out of date or whatever it is, and so you buy stuff. But best believe a bitch is saging and Palo Santo and incense and praying up a storm before I bring that thing, all in the envelope and everything. Because just as a precaution, because you just never know. Even if it's not a spirit, but even if it's the energy of the person that gave it to me, just like. You get something and it smells like cigarettes. Ew. Like I didn't buy something because it smells like cigarettes. So I don't want to buy something and have energy, whether it be that person is depressed right now. And so they're selling their stuff so that they can afford food, you know, whatever it is, I don't want it. You know what I mean? So I just make it a practice to clear everything.